to the Hoops Rehab Show on a Friday night. We got a lot of news. We had a great game out there. The Knicks and the Celtics. Well, wasn't a great game, but might be a great thing for the Knicks fans. But how you doing, Eric?
Good, man. Having a good night so far. Yeah, like not a great game, but that may as well have been for the New York faithful, because I can only imagine what's going on right now in the city. Definitely. I mean, we saw some videos, but it's probably insane out there right now.
I can't wait to see the TikTok videos of the Knicks fans on Fifth Ave, wherever they're at, Madison Square Garden. They are going to be going bananas for this next couple days, I would imagine. But as always, everybody, I am the game injury doc, aka Dr. Evan Jeffries, and Eric B. Mack on my right. You can follow us on all social media platforms at our handles right here. We also have the Hoops Rehab Show on YouTube and Instagram. So please follow, like, subscribe, comment as much as you can. And then we, as always, will upload the pod, and that'll be available on Apple and Spotify under the Hoops Rehab Show. So please download, follow, and comment and rate that. We'd really appreciate that. But let's get it cracking on tonight, man. The Knicks went into the Garden in Game 6 and played like it was a Game 7 and gave the Celtics no hope in winning the game. They exactly did what we talked about, what was needed. And your boy, OG, how much did he have, Eric?
20 plus. I know at least he had 23 from what I checked, 22, 23, right?
And what happens when OG Anunoby gets above 20? The Knicks are 6-0 in these playoffs when OG Anunoby scores 20
we know the secret
points.
We know the secret.
That was huge for the Knicks. And anything else you see? I mean, obviously it's a blowout, but what do you think of the game?
Man, I first gotta say, what is this? The year 2000? We're in the 90s because it's crazy. Yeah, like Chris Childs, John Starks, Charles Oakley, stand up. This is your time to shine. It's just crazy to think that it's been 25 years. I mean, of course, the year 2000 for some of us doesn't feel that long ago, but it is 25 years since Knicks have gotten to the Eastern Conference Finals. And so, ironically enough, it was against the Indiana Pacers. And actually the year before that as well was the Indiana Pacers. So it's definitely a trend between these two teams. And so that's something, that just kind of stands out to me. It's just pretty crazy how it is. But in terms of today, I mean, look, like we talked about it, this was a Knicks moment. Boston, I think they kind of laid it out all on the line in Game 5. Like that was like their one game to be like, you know what, we're not going to go out like that. And obviously they played pretty well, and we thought, hey, Knicks better treat today like a Game 7, and that's really what they did. They came out, they handled business. It was really just, everybody playing well, very well balanced. Obviously, like you look at the stat sheet and things like that, it's a little miscued because of obviously it was a blowout, and so there were some guys that were obviously playing that normally wouldn't play. But yeah, I mean, this is the one game that actually Knicks came out right away and handled business. So it was definitely good to see. What did you see out there?
This was a Tom Thibodeau type of game. The Knicks played nothing but all-out defense. There is a play in the second quarter where Mitchell Robinson closed out on Jaylen Brown. I think he was in the corner. Came from basically inside the paint, closed out on him, and just suffocated him. Basically, and like created a turnover. They got the ball, scored, etc. Right from the get-go. I mean, we had McBride getting a chase down block. I mean, they were just all over everybody. OG, Mikal Bridges, their defensive studs were out there. And I think, honestly, that's a recipe for them to keep going in these playoffs, how to play against Indiana. If they can get that defensive squad that I know Tom Thibodeau knows this, but this season they didn't play like the best defensive team. Like they're capable of playing. But this playoffs, like I said before, they're in the top 3 in defensive efficiency. So they have found a secret with this team, especially with Mitchell Robinson and some of these guys that they already have, to play hard-nosed defense. And if they can do that, I think that will help them tremendously in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, it was definitely a Tom Thibodeau special, all the way to the end when he had his starters in up 35 with like 3 minutes to go. I'm like, come on, man! Like, I get it,
man,
Like,
first of all, let's get to this. Jaylen Brown fouled out in the third quarter, and the Knicks were up by, I mean, what was it, 35 at that point? Whatever it was, there was absolutely no way the Celtics would come back in that fourth quarter.
No chance.
Like, I mean, it's just, it's almost impossible. You've lost Tatum for the year. Jaylen Brown's fouled out. There's no way Porzingis was bringing you back in this game. So Thibodeau, he grinds his players. We know that, but I do respect what he does. He empowers his players, I think. He allows them to play like it's the 90s and play those type of minutes. And people are hating on him constantly. But to be honest with you, it's not like, I mean, yeah, they had some injuries last year when they got into the playoffs. Just people just got really banged up, obviously. But they're a pretty healthy team overall. It's not like they're having these long-term injuries where players are out for the year, things like that. They just get some knick-knack stuff. And it reminds me more of a 90s team where, yeah, they're banged up, but they are going to play every minute, right? They're going to play and get stronger every game. And so I kind of like that style of what he's brought right now.
Yeah, I mean, even like last year, you recall, obviously we don't know what would have happened, but Knicks, again, they played the Pacers last year in the second round, and they had some injuries, that really changed that series around. And I remember thinking like, oh man, I want to see New York versus Boston, just because I thought maybe they had a little bit of the recipe to give them a challenge. And obviously, a little bit different of a Knicks team this year. They really did. And so, yeah, we're going to obviously need to see a little bit more of that next round. But those first 2 games, like Boston up 20, Knicks coming back to steal those in Boston are obviously like, I mean, it's from the Boston perspective, it's really hard to win a series, I think, when that happens to you. Yeah. And then for the Knicks, hey, they took advantage of what was given to them. And I mean, it was a pretty impressive series for them, and definitely happy for those fans that have been waiting for a moment like this for a long time, for sure.
25 years.
Unbelievable.
I do want to give some respect to the Knicks because, obviously the big scenario is that Tatum got injured. But if we just dial back and just look at the whole series in detail, I mean, New York won 2 games on the road to start the series. That was with Tatum, obviously. They lost game 3, but even in game 4, they were up by 7, going up by 9 with OG's dunk after that Tatum injury. Yeah. So essentially, they were probably going to win that game regardless if Tatum was there. So at that point, they're going up 3-1, likely are still closing out this series. So I don't want to really knock off what the Knicks did in this series, because I think they would have won this series regardless if Tatum was healthy. It just didn't seem like Boston was really that team this year. Going into this round, they just didn't have it, especially when you lose 2 games at home. Even though they were up by 20 in both those games, you just can't. If you don't close out games like that, you're bound to get yourself in trouble, and that's what Boston did. Yeah,
and I mean, they, like you said, they were probably going to lose game 4 anyways, and it's real tough to go back to back, man. It's you could have the same team coming back, you could have an amazing season like Boston did, but it's tough. I mean, this would be the 7th straight year that a team has not gone back to back, which is definitely different. In the NBA, we're used to kind of dynasty back to backs. I mean, 3-peats don't happen that much, but we're kind of used to those kind of things. They're winning 2 and 3 years, kind of like the Spurs teams did a lot of times. But yeah, they were going to be down 3-1 without him, and it would have been a tough task to come back. And so definitely got to give props to the Knicks, because they really, regardless of Tatum playing in game 5 and 6, they took it to them and they won fair and square.
Yeah, definitely. Now, talking about 25 years ago, right? Same matchup. Indiana versus the Knicks. They even had Rick Brunson on that roster. And we got Jalen Brunson on this roster. I mean, that's pretty amazing, right? To see that Jalen Brunson's dad was on that roster. Jalen Brunson's dad is coaching on this roster, and his son is the star of this team. So I think there's some cool, like, little scenarios here going into this series. Obviously, we have all the history between Indiana and New York. Reggie Miller is being calling his final broadcast for TNT and covering this series. I mean, can you?
I better see him and Spike going at it. You know?
Can you can you just imagine, like, whatever in one of these games, like Spike looking at Reggie, somebody getting a three, you know, Halliburton looking at Reggie, dapping up Reggie if he hits a three. Some of the Knicks players looking at Reggie. I mean, just for no reason, just because he's Reggie Miller, right?
Yeah.
So it's gonna be, to be honest, this is gonna be a great series. Like, when you first went into the playoffs, I don't think we ever thought this was a series, right? Just because of, like, you know, you figure the Celtics would kind of get by. You figure Cleveland's been as good as they've been, and we kept talking about, oh, the Eastern Conference is kind of weak. Let's
just skip
blah.
to the Eastern Finals, Boston and Cleveland. Yeah.
So I think it's time that we have to realize that there's some good young teams in this league, and there's much more parity in this league than there's ever been in probably history, right? So kudos to Adam Silver, because I think he's done a really good job with the last CBA and just balancing out the NBA, even though, yeah, you always talk about ratings. I mean, New York is going to drive some ratings, but we always talk about, like, oh, we want the Lakers there, we want this team, the Celtics there, blah, 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 blah. This is going to be a great series with a great young stars in this league. So excited for it.
Yeah, parity is definitely real right now in the NBA, or at least it seems like it, because we're getting different winners every year. We're getting different conference finals it seems like for the most part every season. Obviously, you have some of your top dog teams, and they usually do pretty well, but some of them are fizzling out early in the playoffs too. And so, there's something to be said for having, like, a dominant team for either people to, like, hate watch, or obviously, if you're a fan of the team, you want to see him, win more and more. And so, that has done pretty well. It's been pretty successful in the NBA too. But yeah, I mean, it kind of gives every team, it seems like, a fighting chance coming into the season. You just gotta, like, it wasn't the same. Like, you go to, like, the NFL, it's like, let's just make the dance right, and hopefully, the ball bounces our way a couple times and we can get to the Super Bowl. But the NBA was, like, typically, like, you play a 7-game series, like, the teams that you think are going to be there are normally there. And so, it's been a crazy playoffs. And, wasn't the Knicks Pacers 3-4 seed that we kind of drew up, but there's a lot of history there, obviously. And so I think that's going to be pretty cool. They played last year, but I think this is going to be obviously even bigger. It's for all the marbles in the East, and the winner is going to go to the NBA Finals, which I don't think we had penciled in. And so, I think the playoffs are in a good place right now.
Definitely. So let's kind of dive into this preview here of the Knicks and Pacers Eastern Conference Finals, right? So when we look at this series and kind of see what they've both done in the playoffs so far, what do you see this, like, how do you see this series shaking out a little bit?
I think so they played 7 last year, and I would be very surprised if it's less than 7 this year.
Yeah.
I think, it's going to be a split the first 2 games, and then it's just going to be off to the races. I definitely won't be disrespecting the Pacers anymore. That's for sure. I'd like to give the edge to the Knicks. I don't know if it's just because I would rather see them, or, feel like maybe it's like, their time to get back. But same with Indiana. So Indiana made the finals the year 2000, right? And so that was the last time, that they were in the finals. So it's going to be, and then the year before that, the Knicks made the finals. So it's going to be the first time in 25, 26 years that one of these teams are going to be in the NBA Finals. And so I see it going the distance. And, I guess I'd have to kind of go with the home team in that case, but I think, Indiana's got a high octane offense. I like to see what we saw. Knicks defense really has improved as the playoffs gone on. And so it'll be interesting to see. It's going to be a different type of matchup. And the stars will be out and it's going to be a hell of a series for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. Offensively, I think this is going to be one of those series where it's going to be pretty high scoring because you got two teams that just kind of run in pace and definitely were one of the highest scoring teams in the league. They're up there, right? When I look at, some matchups here, like you look at obviously Halliburton versus Jalen Brunson. Obviously, you have to get the edge to Jalen Brunson, but I don't think Hallie is that far off, especially what he does in the playoffs. Like, I feel like you'll probably get more up and downs from him versus Jalen Brunson. You're going to have that consistency, and he'll probably win you some games, obviously. And then Halliburton would just have like 2 games where you're just like, whoa, this dude is legit. And they might fall apart for a game, and that's when the Knicks kind of win. So I honestly, I think like the Pacers will really like be catered to what Halliburton does in this series. If he's kind of pedestrian and doesn't do his normal stuff, I don't think they have a chance. But if he's doing his thing and he's playoff Halliburton, I think they have a major chance in this series. I do think it's going at least 6 or 7. I don't see a quick sweep, or I don't see any like 4-1. But I give the edge to the Knicks based on their personnel right now and how deep their starting lineup is, and their ability to bring in Mitchell Robinson for defense and also just have the wing defenders like OG and Mikal Bridges and also Josh Hart. So I feel like they just have the defenders to kind of stop Indiana as much as possible and probably put them through to the finals.
Yeah, Indiana's going to play like the 9-10 guys that they normally play. And, at this point, we've seen both teams play for 2 series. And obviously, like it's, matchup driven in terms of how these teams look. But we kind of know what it is with these 2 teams, what they're going to bring. And so it can come down to, just as simple as Halliburton. If he's a playmaker, obviously picking his spots with scoring, then they're going to be in it for sure and have a great chance to win. And, same goes with Brunson. If he's the superstar, and star that he's been and that he's capable of, and obviously they'll do well. And same things, it happened when they were playing the Pistons, the games that he was like, you know what, I'm going to take over. They really had no chance. And then same thing with this in this Boston series. So, I think as the next few days go along, we'll probably break it down some more, but just kind of preliminary thoughts. It's going to be a hell of a series. These 2 teams have battled 8 times in their history. And Indiana has won 6 of the 8. And so they've had a little bit of success, like kind of as of late. They haven't played too much, but other than last year, of course. And they played, one year when Paul George was on Indiana and Carmelo Anthony was on the Knicks. And so Indiana took care of that one. And so, I think I'm done like counting out the Pacers. That's for sure.
Can't count them out. Yeah. I think this series is closer to a toss up. And then if you're looking at a toss up, obviously you kind of go to home court with that.
Yep.
And so Knicks in 7 seems like a logical choice. But you never know with these playoffs, like where injuries hit or something hits and it changes the trajectory of the series. Yep. And that's what we're going to get into our next topic here with our Something Happened Today segment. And we're going to talk a little bit about Aaron Gordon. So Aaron Gordon, and we talked about it yesterday, he injured his hamstring at the end of the game, which was super unfortunate. And it looked like it was more than it should have been, like when it happened. And Coach Edelman was talking about his concern was very high going into it. And when they interviewed Aaron Gordon, he said he'll be all right. He's going to start the recovery process and do his best to kind of get ready for Game 7. However, today they officially diagnosed him with a hamstring strain, which we kind of talked about yesterday, which more than likely that was going to be the case. Now, obviously, they didn't give a grade of what type of hamstring strain, but regardless, even if it's a grade 1, you know that he has some micro tears into that hamstring. A grade 2 would be a partial where he has a pretty significant tear in the hamstring. And I guess my thoughts for you and what you've seen out of Aaron Gordon in the past, before I kind of get into my details of it, but do you think he's the type of player that would just play through anything? Because he seems like he is willing to. I just don't know if that's the right scenario for him to do that.
Yeah, to answer your question, I do see him. Like, I wouldn't be like absolutely shocked if he plays.
Yeah.
Just because, although if they win, there's still a couple of series to go. It's still
that's
it's not
one
like
of the major issues.
Yeah, it's not like it's Game 7 of the NBA Finals, but still, it is a big. Obviously, it's a big game, and if they lose, they're out. And so, maybe the kind of style of player that he is, like he's going to maybe try to give it a go. Now he's athletic, he's great defensively. He's he's on a pogo stick. He's obviously a high fly act, right? And so, Clippers saw that in Game 4 in their series. But I do see him, depending on, again, they didn't say the severity in terms of like the grade. So if it is a grade 1, I wouldn't be surprised if he tries and plays, but I don't know how effective he'll be. I mean, something comes to mind. I remember when like OG got hurt last year against the Pacers.
Yeah.
He played and he was, I mean, obviously 2 different total, players and people, but he was just moving around so gingerly, and he was just.
And then he ended up making it worse, and he was out the rest of that game. So.
Yeah, so that I think about that. I don't know why that stands out. Probably because of the Knicks and Pacers obviously are about to play, like we said. But I don't know. What about you? I mean, you from a medical perspective would probably have a different thought. But I know we kind of talked about like potentially like there's a chance he's going to play.
Yeah, it's funny because like when you look at like body parts and like muscles and where the injury is, the hamstring controls so much during the game. And when you think about just the movements, the lateral cutting, his ability to stop, exploding, things like that. And so it makes, especially for defense, it makes it just super difficult to play defense, especially the way he is as a defender. Now, if it was more of a quad strain, it's sometimes just easier to move around with a quad injury, like the front of the leg versus the back of the leg, because it just controls so much of your sprinting with the hamstring. That's why you see sprinters are usually pretty strong hamstrings, and that's usually one of the things that goes if they get injured as a sprinter. So just that ability, the back of the leg, that's what that muscle does, right? It's kind of like the motor house right there. So I think that just makes it just super difficult. Now, he has played through his calf injury, right? I know he was out during the regular season, but he came back pretty early from it and kind of managed it throughout the whole season. So he has an idea of how these injuries feel, right? Unlike Steph Curry, where Steph Curry is the first time he's ever strained a muscle, basically, in the NBA. And so he didn't have an idea of how that would really feel. And at that point, I mean, he could barely walk, and it didn't probably feel good as well too. So, man, the physical therapy brain says he doesn't play, but knowing it's a Game 7 and seeing what he's done in his past, I wouldn't put it past him to suit up for Game 7.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him too, but obviously he's got to make the smart decision, because as you pointed out earlier, I mean, unfortunately, we've been talking about hamstrings all playoffs long, and you talked about how it's like the main protector supporter of the ACL, and so it could affect other injuries, and if his calf is still kind of hurting. And what was the injury he had that he was like, I can't, was it his calf?
His calf. That was still the same calf that he was dealing with earlier in the season. And it just kind of lingered throughout. It seems like he's gotten better and he's kind of been able to do his thing, but it's one of those things that the soft tissue injuries are just difficult to deal with in general, especially when they're acute like early on, right? There's still a lot of inflammation. They can easily be aggravated, and like you said, if they do get past this round, what is Aaron Gordon going to look like at that point, right? If he can't really go right now, or he's risking the second round if they were to win, right? So if he comes back and makes it worse, then maybe he's out for the whole second round.
Yeah, and the schedule is not kind. So they do play on whoever wins plays on Tuesday. So for a Denver team, obviously the goal is to survive in advance, right? It doesn't really matter how many games, but when you play two 7-game series in a row, real tough ass series, back and forth, very physical. It does take a toll. So yeah, you got to think like, I don't know. I mean, obviously Denver can't think about the Western Conference Finals before playing OKC, but I don't know if it's one of these things like, hey, if he plays and that's all we got one more game with him. Like, I don't know if we're going to be able to compete much the next round. So maybe we just try to win the game without him, and maybe he'll meet us in game 3 or 4 of the next round,
Yeah.
Sure. That could be a thought too, but yeah, like we kind of discussed, I wouldn't be surprised if he's out there.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a difficult task, but let's see what happens going into game 7. So speaking of game 7 and these OKC Thunder, what do you think of this game? Like obviously Oklahoma City is a 8.5-point favorite.
Yeah.
So either Vegas is seeing that possibility of Aaron Gordon not playing, right? And also just OKC being a home favorite. Where do you see this game kind of going?
Yeah, when I saw the spread, I was thinking like the odds makers usually kind of know a little bit more than we do, and so there's probably a good chance that obviously Gordon's either not going to play or he could be really hampered, and I think that is probably a couple points there. And so, it seems when I want to count out Denver is when they come out, but I just, with everything that's going on, a game 14 of the Nuggets, it's still going to be a tough game. Don't get me wrong. Like it's still going to be really, really hard to knock out Jokic and Murray, because they're still going to have those two guys at the end of the day. And so if one of them were out, it'd be a different story. But I just, at this point, like Oklahoma City, they're at home, hungry to move past the, second round, like they weren't able to do that last year. And so I got to give just a nod to them, just kind of by attrition, to be honest. I think they're the healthiest team, the more rested team. Obviously they're going to be energized by their crowd. SGA has not been given the MVP yet, but it's weird. I thought they would always do it early in the second round, but I guess not this year. But
they've changed the timing on it. So to be honest, I don't know when they're going to announce that.
It would have been, it would have been good to announce it. But anyways, this is his moment to obviously he's going to most likely win the award regardless, but to kind of show, hey, this is why, I am the MVP. But I think I have to give the nod to OKC, but obviously can't count out Denver. Yeah.
So if you've been listening to the show, I picked Denver to win the series, basically in 7. Obviously, that's without the Aaron Gordon news. However, when I think about teams that are left, and currently they are the only team that has any real championship experience, right? So this is going to be, if they go out in this series, you're going to have 4 teams left that really don't have any championship experience, which is kind of cool in a way for the NBA at one point, but at the same time, it's like, Joker's been there before. Murray's been there before. They got a taste of it in game 6. I think those two alone will step up. And the player that I like, oh man, it's like gambling with this player. It's like literally going and playing roulette. But if Aaron Gordon is out, who has to step up.
Don't say it. Don't say Mr. Westbrook.
And Mr. Westbrook.
Yeah,
he's going to have one of those games going back to OKC where he is from.
Ooh, didn't think about that.
Win it in a game 7. So if I'm Denver, I mean, I at least know I have a dog like Westbrook, right, that can just play his pace. It's hard to get him to play the style you want him to because that's just not his game. He will always play his style.
Right.
And sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's a very bad thing. So it's going to have to be one of those games where he just goes all out, creates havoc, creates turnovers, is able to hit the corner three, is able to make the right play. And I think he could get it done with Joker and Murray in that lineup. So I think he'll be a big part of that because when Aaron Gordon was out during the season, he stepped in the starting role and played very, very well for this Denver Nuggets team. There was a point where we were like, wow, shouldn't Westbrook still be starting for this team because he's been playing so well? And I think Aaron Gordon came off the bench a little bit to kind of get back in his groove, and Westbrook was playing so well in the starting lineup with Joker. They're almost both getting like triple doubles, which was kind of wild. So I think you're going to need one of those games from Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, Westbrook is, obviously always go, 100 miles an hour, and sometimes that's good and bad. And so we've seen it a little bit of everything from him this postseason. He's had a couple really, really good games where you could almost say he, won it for them against the Clippers. To, a couple games against OKC where it's like, that's the Russell Westbrook that we've been seeing the last few years. And so, yeah, he's going to be definitely probably, one of the keys to that game, because I think we know what we're going to get from Jokic and Murray. And so they're going to need that third guy on the road to really step up, especially if it can't be Gordon. And MPJ has been just a little hot or cold, and, it could be the injuries, it could be other things. And so, they're going to need a big performance from him. Wouldn't it be something if he does it in OKC, as you mentioned? Obviously, that'd be pretty cool. But and honestly, like, no disrespect to the teams that are left, I think like every team probably feels they could win a championship this year.
For sure.
And they're going to always tell you that every year going into the last like 5-6 teams. But I think truly this year, like you could see, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe like Gordon does play because like, he's like, man, like, these chances are not going to come very often. We feel we can beat the teams that we have ahead of us. And, or, OKC is like, man, this is our time. Like, we're not going to even have to beat a Boston in the NBA finals. Right. And so I see there'll be just a little bit extra, not that there needs to be in a game 7 to get to the Western Conference Finals, but I think we will see it, and it's going to be fun for sure.
That's for sure. All right, so we got Josh, who's also got parentheses trade MPJ, so we probably know where he stands with that.
Speaking of MPJ,
on Twitter, he says, on the road, you need your consistent stars. Gordon, Murray, and Jokic are the ones, especially with Michael Porter Jr. with one arm. So OKC should be heavy favorites.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way it goes when you got some players that are injured, like MPJ. And then obviously having Aaron Gordon out does not help if he does not play. And even if he does play, he's going to be limited in some fashion, right? So that's the other thing. Even if Aaron Gordon does play, there's no way he's going to be the healthy 100% Aaron Gordon. Like, that's just not physically possible. But if he can at least kind of move around and still be effective, and you'll know that within the first quarter. Like, it might be a scenario where he tries to play, kind of give his Willis Reed moment, and then like how OG went out, it was the same type of thing. You just knew that he wasn't there, and he would have to sit. So that was a game 7 too, right? When OG tried to do that, was that?
It was late in the series. It may have been 6 or 6. Yeah, I know they started going down like flies, like towards the end of the series.
It was in New York, so it was either the game.
Yeah, it was either 5 or 7 , right?
Yeah, I think it was 7 because they were like, "Oh, if he could just try and blah blah blah." And then when he went out there, he just looked pretty bad.
Like he couldn't even move. I remember there was like, gosh, the guy, can't even like move. Like, I mean, he was just obviously his hamstring was messed up, and so
we'll see what they bring with that, but not too optimistic on how he'll look on the court, even if he tries to play.
Yep, and definitely OKC is pretty heavy favorites, but That's why they play the game. It's not always the favorite, especially when you are facing. I think it's like a best player in the world versus probably the best team all year, pretty much going squaring up, and let's see who takes it.
Yeah, definitely. So, we got one more question. Here you go. I'll give you Josh one more. Right. Do you think the NBA needs to fix their scheduling with all these injuries? Maybe not playing every other day. If you guys
the first round, you really don't play every other day. It's pretty spread out in the first round.
Yeah,
so
exactly. The first round was pretty spread out, and when you go 7, you just play more games, right?
Yeah.
Right now, currently, Minnesota has been resting. They rested in the first round. They rested in the second round. Because Minnesota, Golden State went 7 in theirs, right? So they rested up for them. And then now this series is going 7, so Minnesota's been resting up. So if you win your games early on, you got more rest. So I don't think necessarily that them spreading out will make much a difference, because if you're still going to go 7, you're still going to go 7. It's more games than the other team playing. So the other team's just going to have that much more rest against you. So I don't really see that's too much an issue. They're not playing back-to-backs, right? Hell, in the 90s, they didn't ever talk about this or think about this. So I don't think that's that big a deal.
Yeah, don't make me get my old head moment right now and talk about, back in our day in the playoffs, they were playing back-to-backs and every other day. And so, I see your point, though.
Flying commercial.
Flying commercial. Yeah. But thanks, Josh. I see your point. In theory, you may think so, but they really do spread out the first round already for these guys. And I know it's mainly because there's so many teams playing, so they want to try to get all the games on TV. And then as the playoffs move forward, there's less and less teams, so they don't have to have as many breaks. So that's kind of the reason they do that. And so, for example, if Golden State and Minnesota would have won 7, they would have had like that 2 or 3 day break in between. And so, but Minnesota was like, hey, we're not even going that far, and we're resting. And so that definitely has to do with it. You take care of business early, you get the rest. That's just how it is. And it's always been that way.
100%. All right. So we got our last segment, and you guys know the drill. It's called School's Out. Summer vacation.
I think I already had like a sneak peek of my towel. I must have saw it earlier.
Oh. We got one team tonight that is going on a early vacation here.
My goggles broke.
They got their sand, making some sand castles here. But we got the Boston Celtics that are going on summer vacay in a somber moment because they have Jason Tatum probably going to be out possibly next year. So that's not a fun thing. But they will be watching the finals from somewhere else other than at the finals. And we got this guy here. He's kind of a little sharky. If you guys can see it, I know on the pod you won't be able to see it. But they will be floating on some sharks in some pool in a very nice luxury place. So if you see that L in the back, we Laker fans, and when we see the Celtics go out, it's a party.
Yeah, I know you guys got 18 and still got one more than us, but I couldn't see you get 19 before we get 18. So obviously tough break, no pun intended, for Jason Tatum. We'll see kind of what happens with Boston next year. Obviously had a really good season. They were 61-21, second seed in the East, defending champions. Just to be honest, fell short to I guess a better Knicks team, which is crazy to say. Yeah. But they have a long offseason ahead, and I know we talked about it last show, where there was already a lot of speculation about maybe not completely breaking up the team, but we're going to most likely see a very different Boston team because they have a different ownership group. They are very much going to be in the second apron that we hear about a lot. And so very much in the luxury tax zone. And so they were going to make a lot of changes. And so I imagine this will even be more of an excuse to do that, right? Because you're like, you know what? Let's not take a year off, because they never will do that, but let's take a year to reset and see what happens. And so, yeah, man, I mean, they've been on a really good run as of late. They won one, as I said, but just like all the other teams right now, they've been dismissed from school, summer vacation. Yeah. Let's see where they end up going. Maybe Cancun this time for the Celtics, but yeah, man.
Yeah. Peace out, Celtics.
See what happens with them next year.
We'll see you next year. And so that wraps up the School's Out segment, where we send them all on their summer vacation. And probably the sweetest one is sending the Celtics out. I do feel for Tatum, though, because I'm a huge even though he's a Celtics, I'm a big Tatum guy because he was a Kobe guy. So shout out to Tatum. Hopefully he gets recovered as soon as possible and gets back to how he normally plays and part of that upper echelon of players there. So
yes, sir.
We'll be thinking about him.
Yeah.
But this kind of wraps up the show for the Friday night. And we will be back on to talk about Game 7 on Sunday. I hope it's a hell of a game, and I'm pulling for the Nuggets, and I expect a lot out of the Joker. But until then, Eric, you got anything?
No, it's going to be weird. No games tomorrow. I think it's the first time in a few weeks that we haven't had any basketball games. And so looking forward to Sunday Game 7 and looking forward to talking to y'all about the game. And we're going to have that reaction to Game 7 and, of course, preview the Western Conference Finals.
All right, that's for sure. All right, get some rest tomorrow, Eric, and we'll be back on Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
The Hoops Rehab team is out. Peace out.